Bueno. What up, everybody? This is the South Star Classroom coming to you live on Tuesday. We got, as always, the Beard of Knowledge, my co host, David Castillo. We got the real Dr. Charles Cole in the house. We got Jubilee hanging out back, checking out the show. We're wishing her all the best. And for Jubilee's sake, always happy just to see how everyone is doing. Dr. Charles Cole, you're going somewhere, maybe somewhere a little bit sunnier. I ain't getting to disclose where you're going because
I mean,
that's
you
the
just
secret.
cut off most of the country, so no. I'm teasing, man.
Well, I mean, or internationally, man, or
Yes,
the
it's
entire
true.
Southern Hemisphere, man.
Yes,
We are
it's true.
called the South Star Classroom. There's a
I
whole
won't be
Southern
going
Hemisphere,
alone.
baby.
So yeah, I won't be going alone. But nah, man, blessed. We got some talks to give. I get to do it with that illustrious guy to my left on the screen. So I'm really excited about it. I'm tired. He's gonna have to do some carrying of me probably tomorrow and the day after. But it's a blessing, man. And it's just been kind of nonstop. I'm like, okay, I do need to kind of rest and guess after this, I'm gonna just hibernate for a little bit because I can't have people comment after shows like you look tired. Thank you. I'm aware.
And you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, baby. But you
I
don't
ain't
look
sick and
tired.
tired. I'm just tired from
Who
it's
these people
different.
on the
Yeah.
show? Who are these people on the show jumping in, being like, "You look tired and shit." What kind of that's the commentary we're getting? Damn.
We got people that watch. I think they just be concerned, and you know how like when somebody tries to give you a compliment, but it's like, okay, that's thank you. I feel you, but yeah, I'm good. So let me keep smiling, shining. We good.
Shining, David, man, what's going on, man? I see you wearing a different hat today. You're a man of different hats, both metaphorically and apparently physically.
Got many hats. Everything's good, man. Like Charles said, we got some traveling coming up. Going to be in the different part of the country for the next couple of days for work, and then a little bit of relaxation time as well. So looking forward to that. Miss Jubilee today. We miss you, Jubilee. We'll see you back next week. And other than that, yeah, that's pretty much it.
R&R, baby. R&R. I like it, man. Yeah, we're having like haboobs over here in El Paso. I don't know if you're familiar with haboobs, but it is a Arab sandstorm. Yeah, it's a sandstorm typically used for the Middle East, thus the word haboob. But like El Paso is in the desert and the wind is nuts. And then it is like some parts just invisible. And it's not as if like El Paso drivers were already like, quote, safe to begin with.
They weren't great before. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So you just add lack of visibility and some like sandstorms and some tornadoes and shit, like the mummy's coming through. Gonna check out Brandon Fraser. He's about to take out the mummy. I don't know. That's probably a dated reference for y'all. But it's a little nuts out here, man. Air quality, not even like good to breathe. And I'm just like, shit, are we safe anywhere? We out here on our own, Doc. Fires in California, lasers and shit, hurricanes, sandstorms. Brother, where are we gonna go? Where are we gonna live, man? Minnesota, is that gonna be all right?
I mean, you know, I think Minnesota got some nice crisp air. I mean, in the Midwest, we had that derecho. I think we had the show going. I had never been a derecho before. Basically, it's like an inland hurricane type thing. So it sounds like that's kind of similar.
Jesus,
y'all have it sound like y'all got the same thing just with sand, but yeah, or whatever.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right, man.
Midwest is just flat, so you know, you just get, you know, it was hardcore when it happened though. It was like telephone poles snapping in half type stuff. Yeah, I mean, I live in a place called the Windy City, so you know, when it wants to roar up, it can do it.
Oh, Windy City, San Diego. for all you Ron Burgundy fans out there, I can't say what that. I feel embarrassed actually.
Sorry, hold on.
Oh, in position, in perfect position.
In perfect position.
We really miss Jubilee because her dog would have been like, "Yo, like,
what's up?"
Yo, they would have been talking, but you know, they would have had their own show. The dog's got a show. Hey there, man, Chad Martin. Thank you for joining us.
Dog show, man. Speaking of shows, gentlemen, we got an interesting show today.
Okay.
Like, we got an interesting show for our audience. Yeah, we're coming back to diversity, equity, and inclusion, but that is not day. If you're like, God dang it, another diversity, equity, inclusion, I get it. You're Mexican, I get it. You're black. But today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking a word the doctor uses a lot, agentic.
Yeah.
Theo loves being agentic, man. And we got an interesting topic today. So if you don't mind, I'm going to lay this out for our audience. And then, gentlemen, as always, just your hot shots coming in.
Mm-hmm.
What are we talking about today, ladies and gentlemen? We are talking about understanding that there's some interesting work that Donald Trump is doing, particularly when it comes and out of the Department of Education as it relates to diversity, equity, inclusion. So he has announced, Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, ladies and gentlemen, the president of the so-called United States, has announced the launch of, get ready, ndei.ed.gov. Yes, he has made a website, ladies and gentlemen, that allows you, the citizenry of the United States, to report any, quote, illegal DEI practices that are being used specifically within the institutes of education. Now, if you check out the website, while there are no educational experts or really any experts that have been quoted or anything of what you would constitute a expert in the field, an organization called Mothers for Liberty, whose leader, whose name is Tiffany Justice, was quoted saying they are working to end the supposed teachings of critical theory, rogue sex education, and divisive ideologies. Now, the Southern Poverty Law Center, a group of folks out of Atlanta, I believe, and they do great legal aid work. They have been quoted as deeming this group, the Mothers for Liberty, not just a hate group, ladies and gentlemen, an extreme hate group. The group, Mothers for Liberty, has come under fire for recently quoting Adolf Hitler and has direct ties to the Proud Boys. So that is already the start to our day. We are discussing the Mothers of Liberty. So what has been happening, ladies and gentlemen, if you go to ndei.ed.gov, you will see that you can report supposed illegal activities on DEI, and users across the country have been flooding the website and the email DEI a truth at opm.gov by signing up the email and reporting on the website a bunch of newsletters from Scientology, porn websites, and even the Satanic Temple. In fact, one Twitter user fired off this exact complaint, quote, "Hello, I'd like to report a government employee who's engaging in biased hiring practices. Specifically, they are ignoring all measures of skill and merit in favor of hiring people who they believe have been victimized. This is obviously unacceptable. This person even appointed an immigrant, failed businessman with a drug addiction to lead an initiative on government efficiency. My God, all just because he claimed people like him weren't being fairly treated. While this is true that this country has been a long history of discriminating against Nazis, that's no reason they should get special treatment in hiring. Please take action and correct the DEI practices of the Trump administration. Sincerely, concerned citizen." So that is our first, to start off an article, gentlemen. We've got a Mothers for Liberty organization. They have called out for illegal practices, and the citizenry of the United States has taken up arms to report not only on Scientology and porn, but a direct report of the Trump administration and a very, let's just say, unclouded comment about Trump hiring a DEI initiative in Elon Musk, a Nazi saluter, an apartheid believer from South Africa, a failed businessman, and the recent recipient of my sticker on my Tesla that says, "I bought this before Elon Musk went crazy." So just hot takes on that before I jump into the next article and what's going on.
Mr.
What do we
David,
got?
I'll yield to David first. Mute it.
Yeah, I think the moms, I don't know exactly, I haven't like traced back their origin, but I mean, based on what I've seen, the Mothers for Liberty, Moms for Liberty group kind of really took off with the I believe they got very vocal around the COVID school closures, right?
Yep.
And then people sitting around and then starting to focus on particular aspects of the curriculum that may or may not have been there, and then getting into book bans and getting into quote unquote family values, and even pushing so far to support particular groups that want to see prayer not be allowed, but to be mandated in school,
Just
right?
straight up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, straight up. And so, I mean, and we did do, so we had a gentleman on the show about a year ago, if you remember, from Temecula, California, who was fighting a recall. And these people that, you know, they were working to recall were coming in under the guise of this organization. They don't say that they're affiliated, but when you look at their platforms, it's like, it's pretty much, you know, there's a playbook. And we've actually had some of that here local. I mean, I actually had it here locally in our K-8 district. Son's is no longer part of that system, but but they're in hot water now because their board voted to have any mention of anything LGBTQ removed and stripped from the sex education curriculum in the district. And therefore, and then the state of California has refused to sign off on said curriculum, putting the school district in a tough spot. And the superintendent is like, can we just get this thing done? You know, so point being is like, this thing that we're talking about today is actually active in certain parts of California as well. They're here. They've landed.
Yeah. And dude, I was just talking to somebody about that, man. Like, listen, like California consistently, you know, in the last since Clinton has been voting majority Democratic. But if you know this state well, like once you start leaving some of those big cities, particularly Los Angeles and the Bay Area, like Oakland, San Jose, San Francisco, like it is a pretty red state. Like you go north into Sacktown and all of those corresponding areas, like that is very red. You go south of Los Angeles into the Orange County, it is pretty red. Is San Diego mostly blue?
The city is, but the county, the city is, but the county is actually quite mixed.
Yeah.
We have a MAGA mayor here in the city that I live in. And so I mean, we can go down that rabbit hole. The other thing I wanted to say, and then I want to hear what Charles has to say on this topic, is I think outside of this website, which is essentially like it's a snitching website, right?
It is a snitching website. Yeah. Thank you for that.
You know, all of this whole thing that's happened in the last month with this new administration has been incredibly like anti-worker. And, you know, you've got to, there's definitely, if people are working in government, working for the federal government, working in or for, it's got to feel pretty, unstable at the moment, where you're just like not sure if you're going to have a job from one day to the next. And now you have this culture of like snitching and like, you know, I obviously agree with accountability. I think if people are getting paid for a job, they should be able to demonstrate that they're doing a job. But the way they're going about it just seems, incredibly short-sighted. And, they're already pissing off people. You're seeing these town halls with these MAGA, congressmen across the country. And they're like, you're laying off veterans. You're laying off veterans, right? And people are pissed. So we'll see.
Yeah. Hey, bro, just a quick aside, man. One of my professors, Kaner Seth, amazing. She was on our board, huge advocate of the school, renowned professor at Harvard. Her daughter works for USAID, and all of the USAID folks have essentially been laid off for the most part. There's a small effect of them. Just, you're talking about like the USAID is something ludicrous, like 2% of the defense budget. Not even the whole budget, like 2%
Yeah.
of the defense budget. And they're like, yeah, take off. It is truly an uncertain time. Doc,
What
I like
which
your hoodie,
part
man.
am I reacting to? I mean, there's just a lot of stuff, and I think
Yeah, there's a ton, but you know
I
what,
like us being
Dave?
self-aware and being like, yeah, we're talking about this topic again. So I kudos for that. But which part? Because it's a big thing. So I
Yeah,
want to
because
make
I think Dave answered the first question really well. So if you want to just jump into the first question, like who are the Mothers for Liberty? What are their tactics, and how are they attempting to destroy DEI?
Well, I mean, I guess so I'm just reacting to them. All right, cool. I mean, look, I put it like this, man. I think I'm not surprised. I don't like these people, but these people are coming, and I think we just got to be prepared to be in a fight. Maybe it's because of the type of neighborhood I grew up in and the people that I learned from, or like maybe because there's a brown legacy with y'all, a black legacy with me. I need our side to stop being surprised when you hit power and power hits back. Mothers of Liberty, let's be clear, may not have been in quote unquote like traditional power, like they had a role or whatever.
Right,
I'm not about to go into
right.
white supremacy or whatever, right? But it's a real thing. And when you start to disrupt people's livelihoods and make power structure uncomfortable, and they believe in replacement theory and that things are coming, and I think they got a good reason to believe in replacement theory because numbers are very clear, right? And they're worried about it. And they're trying to figure out a way to absorb Latino, Hispanic into white, the way that they did with Italians and other people. So it's part of a process. I read history a lot, so I think I've read about these things happening. Now, here's the thing. If you overreact to every single thing that they do without having an actual strategy to hit back with meaning and to be focused and to not go on every little breadcrumb trail, but like really have a plan, and I think that's how you kind of deal with it. This when we did our solo episode, Omar, when we got to nerd out on the politics, you know, when Jube and David were away and the two kids got to play, and we were like, listen, this election matters. Democrats, get it together because there are going to be very real consequences. You're not going to shame people into doing whatever you need them to do. You're not going to, this whole shaming overall moral arcing strategy that my party has been doing just has not worked. And these are the results of it. This side is emboldened. So what is it like for our side to be emboldened? And I don't mean just being flippant. I don't mean just who can have the best clips online and say this or say that. Like, what is your real, true, like organizing tactics? And also, by the way, you know, I'm a person, like I work in education. I've been there. People are asking about the Department of Education, whether that stays or goes. I never loved the traditional educational apparatus that teaches us and our people. When we talk about what they're trying to take out of this thing, you fight that here, but also you have plans down here. What does that mean? In your community, where are the educational hubs where you can get true education on what needs to happen? Empires will never allow a formal education to take down said empire. So whether it's the LGBTQ issues that you care about, or me caring about true Black history and our role in building this country, or Mexicans want to know like exactly how did Mexico become Mexico and what was that? You're never going to get that true story.
Never gonna get it.
And this is why I respect when I go and there's a Chinatown in every major city I go. I respect how they educate there. They're part of a system, but they also have their own system running concurrently with it. And I think that we have to kind of get to that place. I hear myself, and I know I'm a broken record on this stuff, but like when you're in a fight and you punch somebody, they punch you back. So I think our side has been used to saying things and being able to do things. And then now you got somebody that's actively organizing against you. They're having a little bit of success. This didn't start with Moms of Liberty. A long time ago, there was this little uprising by these people. It wasn't the coffee party. It wasn't the soda party. It was the tea party. And the Tea Party laid a very firm groundwork. And that's how you build movements. Movements don't happen in 1 year, 5 years. They happen over 500 years. And I think that, they happen over 50 years. And so we have to have the discipline and the foresight and the patience and the accuracy to actually not just want to get attention and protest or fight for the sake of it, but what do we actually want to see? And then that is how you get rid of these type of groups. But Moms of Liberty is but a piece of a larger plan and strategy that's rolling out. That's been happening for the last 20 or 12 years, however long ago when the Tea Party popped up. Forgive my inaccuracy. So that's so when I know my people, I talk to my people all the time. I was just talking to Chris Stewart from A Black Hands, who also got on my head. You are formally invited, Chris. He said we never formally invited him. So Chris Stewart, you are the guys want you here. He likes to give me shit. He's like, I invite you to my show, and we had a show together, and you've never invited me to the South Star. So all of us want you here. You can definitely come through. But I think that we have to have our actual own strategy. And at the same time of trying to fix this system, what are we doing on the lower current? How are we making sure that there are no gaps in that meantime? How do we make sure that young brown kids are sitting at the feet of a David Castillo and learning about who they are and learning about who he is and how he got to that place? So, that probably wasn't the best answer, but I've just been hearing so much about it. And it felt like I've been hearing us whine more than like strategize and be annoyed enough to actually do something. And that's why my demeanor is what it is on the topic.
Hell yeah, man! Listen, Mama Toya actually foreshadowing the next article and the next part of the show, which is pretty badass. We're going to talk about grandparents for truth, and Grandmas for Liberty or literacy, pretty close to grandparents.
Well, Grandmas for Literacy is the one she started. I went and spoke with them. Yeah, I went and spoke with them. Yeah, it's really dope. She just congratulations. She's a part of this family. Toya told me this weekend. She was so excited. I missed her call, but she was excited. She has passed her first class around the science of reading. So now she's going to try to go and learn more about the science of reading, get whatever certification she needs, and teach grandparents how to actually teach kids how to read on their own.
That's badass, man. That's what's up.
That's how you build agency in your community.
Yep.
That's what's up, man. So Doc, you mentioned something, and I think this is just my hot take on this particular part of the show about Mothers for Liberty. Is it Mothers for Liberty? Yeah. Which is for our audience, I feel like the left is whining, complaining, and bitching instead of organizing. And I don't even know if they know how to organize. So I've talked to highly liberal individuals who never read Saul Alinsky, who mock openly Marshall Gans. And I'm like, you don't even know who he is. You don't even know what he's done. Like, oh, he's this Harvard professor. He hasn't done anything. I was like, yeah, he organized the entirety of the United Farm Workers, but I guess you don't read, so you don't know such things. And the left has done a terrible job, if they choose to figure out how they are going to organize. Because for me, Mothers for Liberty demonstrates a very organized venture of a group of people who have a very strict agenda of we are going to first back up the work of President Donald Trump, banning books, banning DEI, banning free thought. And I got to tell you, like, I chuckled a little bit because, like, I'm kind of always laughing at irony, and in this case, just straight up hypocrisy. So for fun, I was like, oh, let me look up the definition of liberty. Quote, the state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. That is literally the textbook definition of liberty. And if that doesn't do it for you, quote, the power or scope to act as one pleases. So I love that an organization called Mothers for Liberty are trying to destroy one's liberty to do whatever the fuck they want. Like if I'm a school district and I want to do all the DEI shit, wouldn't Liberty say that I get to act or do as I please? Or I get to act in whatever way that wouldn't be put a restriction on my let's just say political views one way or the other. And I gotta tell you, if you've ever read Dante's Inferno, great poem written by a guy named Dante Alighieri. I believe the hypocrites were put at the ninth ring of Dante's Hell, which is about where I think the Mothers of Liberty are hanging out in their level of hypocrisy, calling themselves Mothers for Liberty. But that's the funny thing. These right-wing people always have this like really fun, innocuous title about liberty. They're doing the exact opposite. But what they are doing is truly organizing on an agenda. And I wonder, guys, like, what the hell can we do as citizens to organize ourselves? So I'll set this up really quick, and then that's kind of the next question. So what has been happening? On this ndei.ed.gov website and on their email, people have been reporting not only the Trump organization, not only have they just been spamming, it was just hysterical. Like they're just reporting, like, "Hey, man, the Trump administration is breaking DEI. Stop hiring South Africans who have ties to Nazi hate groups." They've been signing up the email for newsletters all the way from Scientology to porn websites to the Satanic Temple. to I mean all sorts of like DEI initiatives and websites with the Southern Poverty Law Center. I mean, it's just like hysterical what they are spamming this with, but that is an interestingly organized effort by people to fight and combat groups like Mothers for Liberty and this pretty interesting intention of narking out or snitching on your fellow constituents. So the second question here is like, it's interesting to see how individuals and organizations are responding to the launch of this portal and what impact their reaction has had. And I got to just ask, like, if you launch this portal with the intention of having people snitch, and the overwhelming majority of what you're getting is reports against the Trump administration and signing up for porn sites and all this spam, what do you think the citizenry of the United States is saying with such action?
I mean, I think people troll. I think, I mean, listen, look, I think people troll. I think there's a loud minority of people, left, right, whatever, right? I think if however you put this stuff up, people are going to try to have fun with it or try to turn on his head and things like that. I mean, I think the concept of it in and of itself is just very interesting and wild. But you know, if it was the other way, would my thoughts be the same? So I'm trying to be actually a fair thing. I don't want to be the hypocrite that I push like that. I'd say other people are being right. Like there are going to be people in this world, in this country, that disagree with me and want different things, and that's their right, and they get to have that. Moms for Liberty gets to like push and do those things. I don't agree with a damn thing of it, but it's like, yo, there needs to be, you know, and I saw the grandparents joint that's coming out, and, you know, hopefully that they kind of match and tango. But there are things that was set up in this country around those liberties, around being able to protest, around all this stuff. I think some of that is a form of protest, Omar. Like some of that is like, look, y'all put this up here because you thought we were just going to tell on the liberals and the weird teachers and stuff like that. Hey, apparently we think you're doing the same thing. Also, I also think that Trump is setting Elon up for the real okie doke, but we'll see how that plays out.
I want you to talk about that in a second, because that's really at the heart of what we've been talking about recently. And I mean, maybe you want to explain to our audience what an okie doke is, and kind of, I mean, it's badass shit and it's like political shit. And I kind of, take a moment, like, what is that? And what do you think that is?
Well, I think everybody sees this union between Trump and Elon Musk, so much so that people probably are like, who is the vice president? It's not that Elon guy. I think that Elon misses a lot of different cues, but I think that Elon is, he's kind of hitched his horse to this wagon over here. And Elon has the most money in the world. And Donald Trump is a very, very powerful president. I think Trump has, however you feel about Trump, I think Trump understands power. And I think Elon feels like he's in a lot of power. But I think the apparatus that Donald Trump has set up is Trump is actually getting a lot of love from his people, so to speak. And all the heat is kind of been on Elon, right? About how he's doing this. He's awkward. He's doing these salutes that doesn't, I'm trying to give you my heart. I'm going to double down and do it again. So if Elon does well in his role, then Trump gets to take the credit as I appointed this person. If he fails at it, then you are just another failed DEI option. And I have a new FBI director that really don't like you. He's on record of not liking you. And I get to blame it on that. I think he's put himself in a really good space politically, and that's what people in power do. They mitigate risk, and they, so I'm just seeing a different play roll out. I can see this turning really bad for Elon Musk, but hey, if they run it how they want to run. Again, I don't want to do political shows every week, but it's just I'm just watching, but more so I'm watching how people are reacting to it all. And that's been more interesting to me. How people on the left are reacting, people on the right, and people in the middle. I think that all of this is really shining. And I'm somebody who's really moderate. I'm a left-leaning moderate. And kind of, I just want to get back to some normalcy. I really, really do. I'm not for the extremism either way on either side. And it's just, I just want some logic to come back at some point. And I'm trying to ride out this storm, but do what I need to do in the meantime. So I don't want to take up too much of the show, but that's because every conversation is about these things and all these feelings and emotions. And it's just like, I hear you. So what you doing? Oh, okay. All right. Can I go do something else if we just talking about it?
Well, I mean, I think that when you mention an okie doke, and I'm just going to accentuate this point, then David, jump in. It's like, I think a lot of this is a smokescreen. So I love that, people are finding a way to combat the bullshit of reporting on DEI. And we'll get into that in a second, because I actually think that is democracy in action. Like, hey, man, you get to assert your voice and assert a protest, even in a digital format. But I feel like it's a huge smokescreen for some of the more nefarious things that this administration is trying to do, provide a little smokescreen for the ridiculousness of a guy like Elon Musk coming in and having like a whole department, and he's somehow the head of it, and it's just made up, and just deciding like we're going to start firing, USAID or USAID.
We got you.
Education folks, right? And I just think like I think it's like, hey, look over here so that you don't see the stuff that we're doing over here. And I'm wondering like if the fight is the right fight, despite the fact that like it's still kind of funny that like that site is getting spammed. David, I don't know, man. What do you think?
On what particular piece? I mean, I think, I don't know if we well, you gave the definition for liberty, right? And I do want to stay grounded. I think it's very easy to get into this like kind of response mode about, all these things that are happening. And then you have to understand like how much control do we actually have in this situation, especially with the pace at which things are happening. But I do think, I looked up this other liberty-minded group, and it has me thinking about the actual word. Your definition has me thinking about the word liberty. And when I look back at not just the Moms for Liberty, but like this particular new rebranding of liberty that's coming out of this new like Trump MAGA world.
Yeah.
The first part of it, I get, like, liberty is liberty. And it's a very basic concept, right? The challenge is that with groups like Moms for Liberty, or even, even like people like Elon Musk, or people like Joe Rogan, or people like Donald Trump, or, all, the mouthpieces of the right. The second part is where it becomes a problem, because they want to live and die by the sword of liberty, but then they tell you how you should practice, right, and what you should believe. When in reality, like, if you really want to, like, take for instance, like, education, if you really want to have, we should really have a free and an open room for dialogue that includes an inclusive curriculum, right? Nobody's telling you what to believe. I think if you have a robust curriculum, you're giving young people, the full kind of set of information and knowledge, right? Some people aren't going to like this part of it. Some people are going to like this part. And then you allow young people to make meaning of it and make their minds up. The issue here is that these groups are coming in under the guise of, standing for liberty. And then, like I said, then they tell you what to think. And that's
Right.
not liberty. That is so far from liberty. They might as well just tell you what to think, because true liberty is true liberty. So I think there's that. And then the other thing about, like, I think Charles was getting to it, seeing, like, every day there's a new headline, every day there's a new campaign. Like, we didn't even, the crazy, like, nightmare of a press conference with Zelensky, like, we haven't even talked about, but that's never happened before. You can imagine that happening. Like, I mean, that was an insane thing that happened. However, I'll go to today's headline, and today's headline is like, Trump is talking about tariffs, and yesterday he's talking about tariffs. He's live on TV talking about tariffs, and you can see not the reaction of people, but the reaction of the stock market ticker that's just like going down as he's talking, right? Mm-hmm. That's a real world reaction. Today, we're hearing from, leadership from our brothers and sisters to the north and our brothers and sisters to the south, Canada and Mexico, about their plans to fight back. And you're already seeing, like, prices are going up for particular goods. The price of vehicles are going. If you wanted to buy a car, you should have bought one a week ago, not today. I mean, we're literally seeing the markets respond to the things that he's doing. And I don't know, I mean, I think that's really where the rubber meets the road. That's really, I think, is what's going to get. That's what ultimately will get the attention of people like Donald Trump, because he doesn't want to see prices go up. He doesn't want to see a war. And also people like Elon Musk, at the end of the day, I mean, they have to have some kind of common sense to say, like, okay, maybe we move too fast on tariffs. Maybe we move too fast on trying to cut off Ukraine,
Mm.
Yeah, man. And, good. I'm not on mute. And I think you're right about what is it about not just the idea of, like, liberty that doesn't ring true. I think for me, the next question is really about what is the agentic nature of what people can do in order to actually participate in this democracy, which is feeling harder and harder and harder to do, that has traction, that's actually going to make some level of dent. So I'll kind of introduce, there's a second article, and not unlike Talia's incredible agentic organization, Grandmas for Literacy, there's an organization called Grandparents for Truth. And it's a project by a progressive advocacy group called People for the American Way, PFAW. And it was established to counteract conservative groups like Moms for Liberty. So what I'm getting at, if you're just going to sit there and spam a website, maybe look into organizations that are trying to organize themselves and counteract things that just don't agree with you and agree with your politics. So this group was launched back in 2023, so pretty recently. And Grandparents for Truth, they aim to combat book bans, educational gag orders, and the influence of far-right political candidates in schools. The members actively oppose censorship on school board meetings, support progressive school board candidates, and urge legislators to stand against bigotry, advocating for children's freedom to learn. So, given the fact that you've got an organization to counter an organization like Grandparents for Truth, how do you think that this is a good example of how people can have some level of agency in an otherwise pretty unpredictable campaign? So if David Castillo and Dr. Charles Cole were to tell our audience, here's three things that I would do to participate in this democracy in the current day, finding out advocacy groups that matter to you specifically within education could be one. What would you tell our audience about some agency that they can have in combating policies that they would otherwise deem counterproductive or not filled with liberty?
I'll go ahead, David, if you want. I didn't want to.
Yeah. I mean, I think number one is get involved, right? There are groups that, you know, like I didn't even know about the People for the American Way and about this this group, Omar, until this show. So I mean, there's ways to, like, you know, get involved, get active, whether that be through like making donations or actually, you know, getting involved in their campaigns, right? So like getting out in the streets, right? Getting involved, getting connected to organizations. I think the other thing that people can do, and it's already started, like once the election came and went on whatever it was, November 5th, you know, we immediately turn the corner and focus on the midterms, which are in 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. So we actually have a brand new like election cycle that's already firing up across this country. And so there are ways for people to get involved with directly with campaigns or with their political party. Right. So like roll your sleeves up, get involved, do some phone banking, you know, whatever it is. There are like low
hanging fruit.
Low hanging fruit and like low barriers to entry for a lot of these activities. You don't have to be a skilled political organizer to, like, you know, work a phone bank or whatever it might be. And I think these things are good too, because then you know, especially during times like this, then you can kind of surround yourself with, you know, people that maybe, you know, have similar views to you, right? So you tend to be less isolated. I think for me also, one thing that, that, you know, I'm doing and that I'll continue to do, especially considering the attacks on our immigrant communities, is making sure that I'm like supporting and facilitating communication and the free flow of information around immigrant rights, right? Because there's a lot of question about like deportations and, you know, people working in schools not knowing what's permissible and what's not. So making sure that, you know, vulnerable communities are getting the information that they need, you know, to make sure that they are able to keep themselves and their families safe. And then the last thing is, it's very interesting with this website that you put on, this NDEI. You know, I was thinking about one other thing that you can do is just stay focused on the things that we know really matter. Like, we're an education podcast. We talk about, you know, what's the core fundamental unit of measurement that we talk about? It's like reading, right? It's literacy. Right. And so making sure that we don't get distracted here, both on the show and in our work lives around those things, because those things are not, it's going to be the same in 4 years. So I'm considering submitting a complaint to this NDEI website to the state superintendent of Oklahoma, because most kids in his state cannot read. And if you look at Black and brown kids and Native kids, it gets even worse. So he is actually practicing this kind of illegal discriminatory practices at official public institutions of learning in the state of Oklahoma. So I will be filing a complaint.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I think for me, man, I would say, I'm gonna tell you what I'm doing. I don't want to tell other people what they should do. I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do for me.
Do it, baby.
I think, well, I think more just thinking globally and acting locally. And I know that that's very cliche, but I think it's like, you know, my own house needs its own cleaning. Like I just went back home to Oakland last week, and I mean, I didn't know that the problem could even the homeless stuff could get even worse than what it was. And
yeah. Did you see it? Did you?
I'm saw it. I'm from it. Was in it. And again, I said, I grew up homeless. So, you know, and not that there's levels to homelessness. I always had like a shelter and things like that. But there's so much talk there. And again, there's all the right talk. There's all the right talking points. But there's no action points. And I think how does my house look, my own community, and where I live now in Dalton, we're on national news. And we're a small village. We're not even considered a city. We're a village, and our mayor is on the news trying to be Nino Brown, and just got into a fight at a city council meeting. Fist fight. So far be it for me to wag my finger at the rest of the country. Two, like, I gotta get healthy, man. I gotta like make sure I'm good, strong, and healthy, and my head is right. So I can't take care of nobody or do nothing if I'm not where I need to be. And the world being in calamity is not an excuse. My heart doesn't care. I'm a black dude.
But your heart will go on.
Yeah, I'm a black dude of a certain age, and y'all are brown men of a certain age. And we're at the ages where friends, colleagues, and people we know just start dropping dead, especially men. We just drop dead and die. That's why when I was last talking to you, Dad, I was like, man, kudos on still doing the running thing. When I saw David, we went to our last trip. David like, nope, I got to go run right now. Came back, saw him sweaty. I loved it, man. Whether it's swimming or running. And again, people like, what this got to do with the larger thing? I think it has a lot to do, because ain't much David gonna do from beyond here. He got a family to raise. And I think that's one of the most important ways one can be revolutionary is like, how are you raising up your people? And I think third, man, I think tapping in with mine. And what I mean is there are things, I'm a Baptist dude who grew up with a Jesus loving grandmother, and I have a set of values that I need to tap in with, regardless of what's happening. There is definitely a higher power that's out there. And I think that like, I need to make sure that my head is straight so I can make clear decisions, because again, we keep talking about some of the stuff. I don't like this crazy right-wing extremist stuff, and I don't like the crazy left-wing extremist stuff. I think the reason why that let's be very clear. Moms for Liberty was able to flourish and grow because there was some crazy stuff happening in some of these places. And I want to get back to a place of like, yo, where are we at just logically? Where are we, right? Like, but any group that gets too much power, like power corrupts. And that's what happens. They got a lot of power. All them people that was dumping money into that are now like, oh, y'all got the platform now. So now let's do this. Let's go here, right? They switched from just a group of moms that wanted wild shit out of their kids' classrooms and didn't want their third graders hearing about LGBTQ sex to now you're like this large political platform. And at some point they're going to run for larger offices. At some point, right, they're going to have like
they got the juice now, baby.
Things like that, right? Like, you know, they got Senate support, but they're going to get Senate candidates soon, right? So like, where are our values as like people? Like, am I tapping in with myself? Like, am I getting lost in this stuff? In the middle of the storm, can I stand there with my values, my morals, my thoughts, my family moving in the right direction? Because I'm not about to be reacting to every fucking headline. I'm not about to be reacting to all the craziness. And just because somebody, even though I've been yelling this shit for 15 years, David and I, since we've met each other, have been complaining about the same things in education. So now that people are catching up and want to have those conversations, and I might not be as enthused, like, nah, man, I've been here. I've been at this place, and it does nothing but give me a heartburn to just overreact on a lot of different things. You being emotional in your house or on the internet or what you put on Twitter, or even if you hate Elon, even though you're tweeting on his platform, telling him how much you hate him, I just don't know if you know how dumb that shit is. So like, my thing is Like, we got to get back to like, yo, in the middle of the crises, in the middle of the insanity, where's your stoicism? I don't have it yet, but I need to tap into that. I need to make sure I'm reading and vetting the things that I need to read and vet. What is coming into my mental, into my space that actually makes sense for me? Because again, when I go out, when I leave these platforms, when I leave my highly sophisticated friends with all the degrees and stuff, and I talk to my neighbor that's right next door to me or down the street, this is not the conversation that they're having. Like, she's trying to like survive and make sure, you know, without her husband and her child is passed, her son is passed, it's just her. It makes me, it grounds me to like connect with her and see how precious life is and like enjoy my time with this 80-something-year-old lady who was a bus driver until last year, and just enjoying that time. And I'm ready to grow vegetables with that woman again. You know what I'm saying? So that's not the best answer, but that's just where I'm focusing. I cannot be part of the rat race of just like overreacting both ways with no action there. It's a fool's errand that I can't partake in. Not that way. I have to do something that feels meaningful to me and that actually is going to impact the people that I love and care about. And if anybody got a problem with it, then fuck them. Like, I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not trying to leave one wave for another. I'm trying to sit on the beach and watch the waves crash.
Actually, man, like taking the words almost out of my mouth. So I've got a couple of ideas on people on how they can take some action, direct things that I felt really emphatic about this week. And then, gentlemen, like, show's done, man. We got to have some final thoughts and peace out. So
I got to go.
If
pack.
you are,
There's that. I don't know if David packed. I know I need to.
No, not yet.
And then we got to talk about Oakland in a second. So if you are an audience member and you're wondering what are some things that I can do, like real action steps, the reason that I brought this whole thing up is that there are really well organized people like Mothers for Liberty that are garnering the president's attention, that are garnering people's attention across the country. And then, dude, you see it right here. They organized a whole website to basically snitch on DEI initiatives and a whole email. And like, that's some activated work. Now, granted, I found it both comedic and interesting that the backlash against such was enormous, which constitutes the fact that I think there's a lot of Americans that have a radical disagreement with the way that this administration is running. So if you are one of those people that disagrees, yeah, you can go off rogue on the internet and send a bunch of spam, or look into organizations like Grandparents for Truth. Look into organizations like the Lincoln Project. Look into organizations like Indivisible. Look into organizations like called Americans Against the Trump Action Network. Like, that couldn't be more obvious than just Google, like, I don't like Trump. All right, the Americans Against Trump Action Network, or even like the People for the American Way. What I'm saying is you don't have to feel isolated and alone. There are organized groups that are advocating for the same things that you're advocating and trying to get a critical mass of people to do things in an organized way, like help support, as Mama Toya said, school board elections, like help support counter efforts. But if you're just going to go at it alone, you're not going to get very far. It's really important to organize yourselves in the same way that these Mothers for Liberty are organizing. Doc said this really, really well, and so did David. So my second point is, hey, first point, join a group. Second point, you've got to, I can't be more opinioned about this. When I mean educate yourself on what's going on in the world, do not tune into the news. They're not going to tell you shit that is worthwhile. MSNBC ain't going to tell you shit. CNN ain't going to tell you shit. You think they're telling you things? They're not telling you anything that's other than what's going to garner fear, make you afraid, and make you keep watching. And Fox is the same shit. I think all mainstream news, sadly, has just absolutely destroyed the intention of news, which is to inform a public so that they can make critical decisions about this democracy. You need to go in and read. You need to go in and watch some videos that are not done by mainstream news. You've got to be able to educate yourself, and that includes stop watching the news. for God's sakes, don't ever think that anything on social media has any validity whatsoever. It is all horseshit. Do not take a story on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. What is that weird Snapchat shit? Yeah. Like, don't take any of that stuff literally. And in fact, man, like, I'd really advocate our audience to stop going onto those platforms for the most part. Yeah, how many hours are y'all spending on social media, man? Like, I've been trying to do a huge cleanse. This past week, I've spent, I think, less than 5 minutes all week on any kind of social media whatsoever. Like, you're not going to find the truth there. So you kind of need to do deeper seeking of truth. But as Doc really well said, man, my third is self-actualization. Man, take care of yourself, exercise, take care of your heart, do some meditation, learn about spiritual work, learn about some of that inner work, try to root out some of that trauma, because the more you become self-actualized, the more you start seeing the truth, the less you start fearing, and the more you feel empowered to do something versus feeling like everything's just happening to you. So those three things I would advocate for our audience. This is how to take action in a weird, brave new world. That, gentlemen, I don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 years. I do not have positive thoughts of what may happen in the next 5 years. But we got closing. Let's close the statements, gentlemen. How would you like to close
I
this
get out the way and
out?
to the deck for you, David. I think you've been on fire, so let me get out the way. I think I think there's been things that I've lived through in my life. I think that you know, there's always things always have a potential to go terribly wrong. If you read history, like if you know, there's a Pompey and there's a Rome, and they ruled when they ruled, and then they fell. I don't want to be alive for the fall of the United States. It's very possible, but at the end of the day, like, you know, I'm taking these things in stride and doing my part. Like you said, Omar, be a citizen. You have things that you can do as a citizen. Show up to a school board meeting, show up to a city council meeting, you know, do your part. But also, like, where are you? Like, do you know the stuff that you're talking about, or are you just looking for other things that agree with your emotions in the moment? I would challenge us to not do that. I try to read as much as I don't want to be influenced by either of these super hyper camps. Either way, I got to know what they're talking about and kind of compare. But, like, you know, we got to get back to like a common truth on some things. And so be you know, take care of yourselves, like you said. And yeah, man, we can talk about these things if people want. I'm down for it. But when I ask you what you're doing, you know, don't talk like you got all the power in the world, but then you don't exercise the agency that you have in this country. That's one of the things about it here, is that you can say stuff, you can organize the same way they organized and did all that stuff. You can do it on your own. Now, let me let you know something. When you're good at organizing, you do become a target. So understand that there are things that come with that. Read up on your favorite organizers, right? And there are trade-offs in everything in life. But I love where we are, in the sense that we get to do this type of show and have these type of conversations, because there are a lot of places in this world that cannot do it. Like, they can't do it. I've traveled to and been in some of those places. They cannot do it. So, you know, I just wanted to just leave with that, and you know, keep working for that justice, baby.
Yeah. Don't want to repeat anything. I think the only thing I would add is, yeah, I think, you know, if people are heavy users of social media, definitely find a way to step back from that. I've actually shut down a couple of my key accounts, and I haven't missed it. So that's been very helpful. I think in terms of, you know, how to navigate through this time, of course, you know, yeah, self-care, taking care of yourself, making sure that your body and your mind are healthy is absolutely key. I think getting involved, you know, getting active, connecting with, you know, other members of, you know, your local community, joining a campaign, those things matter. I think the most important thing, though, is, especially during times of change like this, and I agree, Omar, it's going to definitely get a lot crazier in the next couple of weeks and months and a couple of years, right? And so people need to be prepared for that. But again, for me, the most important thing is, like, identifying, like, what and everybody has their own kind of non-negotiables. So like, what are your own personal values? You know, you pick up values from your community, you pick up values from your family members, you pick up values, just based on the interactions that you have with people in your own history. So get reestablished with your values, with your core values, the way that you see yourself in the world that you see the world, and stick with those things, right? Those are your principles. Those are not going to change, right? Focus on building, not just in terms of like a campaign, but like, is the energy I'm putting out constructive, right? Because a lot of the energy that we're seeing put out now, including that snitching website, and what we're seeing from this new the new Republican Party, is all fear-based, right? They're trying to scare people, and it's working. But for me, I'm not about like pointing out the faults in others, trying to move people via fear. Stand for your values. If you stand for something, it's going to be a lot more difficult to be swayed, because you're standing on your foundation. And so for me, I think that's kind of like my litmus test. When I see these new campaigns, I'm like, oh, very easily I can see they're trying to scare people, right? They don't actually, it's like they don't actually stand for something, right? And you can tell that. So I think, whether that's as an individual, with your family and your community, just take the time to get grounded. And that's always helped me through times like this, when we're definitely going to be going through lots of change. And the last thing I would say is the country divided? Absolutely. But, we've been through these times before. I think Charles was alluding to it. There was a time not too long ago in the history of this country where, people would take up arms and literally walk thousands of miles, to another part of the country, just to find like Confederate soldiers to like kill them based on some kind of a war that they may not have really understood, right? That was real division, right? And we're not doing that today. We might be sparring on social media or sparring at the barbershop or on the street corner, but I think there's actually the division is probably a lot more superficial now than it historically has been. So that's another important thing to keep in mind. I'm not gonna leave my home and walk for thousands of miles to another part of the country to attack somebody. Come on now.
Shit. I mean, I will say this,
Might
man.
take a plane.
I'm a little worried about California these days, man. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on in California, bro. Fires, craziness. I was taking the BART train from Oakland Airport to San Francisco, and Doc, holy shit. Like,
Yeah.
all that area, man, like basically like Fruitville Station after the Coliseum, like it is colonies and colonies of homeless folks. I've never seen anything like that. And I mean, and they look like the favelas in Brazil. And therein lies the truth, is there are some serious issues going on here, folks. We've got serious issues when it comes to homelessness, when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to the middle class, when it comes to democracy. And I want our citizenry to participate, but I also want our citizenry to be very well acquainted with the idea that like smoke and mirrors is a real thing. And the reason I brought this whole diversity, equity, and inclusion thing up today isn't just because I thought it was interesting and funny and really had some level of agentic nature to it, in that people can activate themselves to do something even when they feel that they can't. It's really about educate yourself on what's really going on right now. What is really going on with our financial institutions? What is really going on with our manufacturing institutions? Like, Trump sat here and promised like jobs, and that promise was full of shit. Like, inflation's only gone up. The stock market is tanking on a result of tariffs that have never worked ever since William McKinley. And it's really important, I think, for a citizenry not only to have an agentic nature, have a plan, but also understand like, what is this group of people really trying to do? What is Mothers for Liberty really trying to do? And how do we organize ourselves to help each other out, and maybe even join other organizations that are in the same fight? So on that note, we are done, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of co-host David Castillo, On behalf of co-host Dr. Charles Cole, we are the South Star Classroom. We're here every Tuesday. Please write to us. Let us know what's on your mind. Participate. Join in the chat, and we will see you, as Doc says, same bat time, same bat channel next week. Peace. Jubilee, we love you. We miss you.
Love you, Jube. Chris, you are invited. And Toya, when you're ready, we'll have you on as a guest to talk about your group.